Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Flight Sergeant Chan, and I'll be going through activity number 10, which would be construction of a model aerodrome. And also, it goes by Aerodrome Part 1, and right now I'm titling Introduction to Aerodromes. So, there are going to be three parts in this lesson, but the three parts are just really one big activity, one big project at the end. When we reach the third part, it will basically be a presentation of what you did for the past 3 weeks. So, or like I guess for the 3 weeks that you're doing this activity for. So we'll start with the first lesson, which is just a little review on parts of an aerodrome. But before that, we should go over what's the difference between an airport and an aerodrome. So an aerodrome is defined as any area of land or water that is used for arrival, departure, movement, or servicing of aircrafts, while an airport is an aerodrome that has been certified and meets a certain criteria. In Canada, an airport must meet the Canadian Aviation Regulations, or the CARs. Therefore, all airports are aerodromes, but not all aerodromes are airports. Maybe try to remember that, because that's an important distinction. Okay, so we'll be going over the basic parts of an aerodrome here. We have runways, taxiways, aprons, terminal buildings, hangars, windsocks, the air traffic control tower, weather stations, fire halls, lights like runway and taxiway lights, and flying schools. So the first part we're going to be talking about are the runways. So a runway is where aircraft take off and land. They can be made of many materials such as gravel, grass, dirt, or concretes, and they are also numbered using magnetic north. And specifically, to find the number on either side of the runway, you will have to round to the nearest 10 and then remove the zero. So the next slide will help you, I guess, visualize. So the example is this runway may be facing 273 degrees magnetic north, which will round to 270, and then once you remove the zero, it will become 27. So hopefully you understand this. If you don't, just please ask a question, and I'll try my best to explain it to you, but I think it's pretty simple. Yeah. Oh, I guess one more thing for this is on either side, there would be a difference of 18. So on this side, on this runway, it's on this side it's 27, but on the other side it should be 09, because it will be 180 degrees subtracted from 270, so it'll be 90, which will make it 9 on the other side. It's just a fun fact. Okay, then we move on to taxiways, which we also call the roads of the aerodromes, as aircraft use taxiways to get around places, I guess specifically aprons and runways. They are usually made of the same material as the runways, and some of them have dotted lines in the middle to help the pilots navigate them so they don't go off the side of the taxiway, which will not be good. Okay, then we have an example of what they look like. I know it's very small, but these are the runways. And then we have taxiways in between going to this terminal building, where we have the apron, and taxiways to go in between more taxiways. So there's a lot of them, and they really are a majority where the planes go from place to place. That's not a sentence, but yes, they help airplanes get from place to place. from runway to apron and apron to runway. Okay. Then we talk about aprons. An apron is also known as the tarmac or the ramp area. It accommodates the loading and unloading of passengers and cargo. So that is where you would, when you're in the terminal building and you look out the window where the airplanes are parked, that's where the apron is. And the apron is also used for servicing or services like de-icing, which is important because you don't want ice on your airplane. Refueling, also important for obvious reasons, I hope. Servicing and the parking of aircraft. Then we have the terminal. The terminal is used for passenger arrival and departure, as well as baggage and cargo holding. So they are usually located on the apron, and the biggest thing is that you wait there. Like if you have ever gone on a flight, you'd be in the terminal building for the most part, and then you get on your plane from the terminal building. You can see here, there have the passenger walkways to go from the terminal building to wherever the planes would park, and you can load there. Then we go on to hangars, which are of a simple use. They are used for storage, protection, and the maintenance of aircraft. So you don't want any of the airplanes to have degradation, especially if there is something like rain, which might not be good to have aircraft stored out for a long time. So you might want to have it covered underneath a hangar where nothing can really, no outside elements can mess with the construction of the airplane. Then we'll move on to a windsock. So pilots use this instrument to determine the air direction when they're flying over the aerodrome or taking off. It's very simple. It has 5 stripes, orange, white, orange, white, orange, and each stripe represents 3 knots of wind speed. And if the windsock flies straight, then there is a 15 knots of wind. Then we have the air traffic control tower, which is very important on an aerodrome because it ensures the safe and efficient movement of aircraft, and also the people inside are responsible for procedures like takeoff, landing, circuit procedures, and the ground maneuvering of aircraft, so that the aircraft don't crash midair or hit each other on the taxiways. And that's why it's an important building, because it'd be awful if a plane crashed into another plane. There are a lot of stories if you really want to look up online, but I'm not going over that. The air traffic control tower is important, and also usually it's a very unique shape. There's a 360 glass sort of dome that you, not necessarily dome, but like there's windows that go in all directions, so the air traffic controllers can see what's happening on the ground if they want to have some visual confirmation. And if you've ever been in one, it's pretty cool to look, because you're basically, some of them basically in the middle of the runway, or not runway, in the middle of the aerodrome. You can see a lot of land out. Okay, so then we go on to a weather station. They are pretty discreet. You won't really notice them too often. The easiest identifier is the large orange and white pole reminiscent of the windsock, but they usually are just there to collect data on the weather, such as wind, cloud height, precipitation, humidity, pressure, and visibility. All of which is important to help the pilots navigate and fly the plane in various different weathers. The winds are too strong, or if the winds are in a bad direction, plane can usually not take off or land because it's unsafe. So a weather station helps with that. A weather station also tells or tells pilots directly or broadcasts the weather over radio. It's pretty cool if you are on an aerodrome and you have a radio that can receive signals, because then there's a voice that has to call, I guess, no, announce what the weather is like, and they have fancy codes. So if you ever have a chance to do that, that would be cool, but I can't guarantee that experience here right now. But look out for that, I guess. Then we have fire halls, which are always ready in case of an emergency on the aerodrome, such as emergency landings, sick passengers, and crashes. They have specialized fire trucks that are prepared to react in all types of situations that might happen on the aerodrome. I know that they have this special kind of puncturing thing to puncture into the hull of the airplanes to get people out in case people get trapped in it, which makes it very cool. Then we have airport lighting. So the airport has different lights in order to identify different areas at night. So taxiways usually have blue lights running on both sides of the taxiways. You can tell over here on the image. Then we have runway lights, which have white lights running on both sides of it, but also has double-sided red or green lights on either end. So both ends of the runway could be red or green depending on the direction the plane is flying in. Then we have flying schools, which are training facilities for current pilots and those who pursue a career in aviation. So if you ever plan to be a pilot, there's usually a flying school on an aerodrome that you would go to. So the activity for you in this, or the project for you in this activity would be constructing a model aerodrome. So these are the basic instructions. You would create a model aerodrome using materials you can find around your home, and you should include all the elements listed in the construct a material aerodrome checklist. I couldn't exactly find that, but I think I know what they were talking about, and that is the first worksheet that I'm going to get you to do. You may also add additional elements not mentioned in this lesson. So if you want, you can add special things. I can't think of anything on top of my mind, but if you want to add things onto your model aerodrome that I have not discussed in this PowerPoint keynote, please feel free to do so. So for your first kind of part of this lesson, this is only the first week, part 1 of the aerodrome lesson. I only need you to complete the first worksheet, which will be put into your little C18 air operations files in the class folder in your classroom. So please make sure you check that out and then fill it out by Friday. As well, I also want you to kind of make up a draft. It doesn't have to be perfect or like scaled, but I want you to kind of have an idea of what you want. Maybe you could look up runways. I can put those resources in the chats for future reference, and as well, I always put links in the document. So for the link to this lesson, you might have found in a PDF. So look into that folder as well. It usually has all the materials I share. So after that, I'm gonna show you an example of a model aerodrome because it's not necessarily real. It's a recreation in Minecraft, believe it or not. It's just scaled enough and then you just zoom out. So you can tell that they have 2 runways, one going this way and one going this way. You can have them parallel as well. You can have parallel crisscross if you want. You can go off about how you want to do it. You can have a cross with one that is not going cross. That sometimes happens because it all depends on wind direction for airplanes to be able to land or fly. So then you can see that they have taxiways. That was weird. Then you can see you have taxiways on in between each, like going to and from each end of the runway, as well as to the apron over here. There's a helipad. That is not a usual. That was not one of the things it covers, so it's cool. You can see that this is the air traffic control tower. If it's very subtle, but it is. You can have it right over there, and then terminal building, I assume. And then we have the two hangars on the apron where the airplanes are parked with the cute little kind of parking lines. So that is it for the example, and pretty much it for this lesson so far. Written instructions will be given, I guess, and just make sure you check it out if you're interested. I know this is a 3-part lesson, but you should be able to do it all within 3 weeks. The parts are not that bad. So that's it. I'll talk to you later, and hopefully I can see what you have made at the end of the 3 weeks. So for now, I'll say goodbye, and I'll see you on Friday or perhaps Wednesday.